Hello, this is Knights of ASMR, and today I'm going to read you a novel, the second chapter of Lemony Snicket's The Bad Beginning. The one you've been waiting for. That's the one you've been waiting for. At least it's better is to wait a little longer for all the happy time with yourselves and with your videos and with your fans and with everyone around you and your loved ones. Because you're going to read some more words, some tragic words of the very unfortunate times that our three children have been through. And I suggest, again, to look away. So look away. And if you have to, and if you suggest you want to keep this going and want to keep watching the video, I suggest you subscribe and like below my video if you want to. Again, like I said, look away, unlike it, and don't subscribe. Now, let's begin. Oh, before I get started, I would like you to know me as Nice Player under the name of below of my video. And you know me as Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram. But if you really are interested in me, you may follow on Instagram and Twitch and on Twitter. My name is Nice Player 7. If you're interested to get to know me, interested to get to know your friends and all. But you don't want to know all of the stories. Like I said, just look away. Alright, now, let's begin. The Bad Beginning. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. It is useless for me to describe to you how terrible Violet, Klaus, and even Sunny felt in the time that followed. If you have ever lost someone very important to you, that you already know how it feels, and if you haven't, you cannot possibly imagine. For the Boiler children, it was the chorus especially. Terrible event. Terrible, terrible. Because they had lost both of their parents at the same time. At the same time. And for several days, they felt so miserable, they could not scarcely get out of bed. Klaus found he had little interest in bugs. The gears in Violet's inventive brain seemed to stop. And even Sunny, who of course was too young to really understand what was going on, did things with less enthusiasm. Less enthusiasm. Changed much for those children after the tragic deaths. Deaths. Tragic deaths. Of course, it didn't make things any easier. They had lost their home as well and all their possessions. As I'm sure you know, to be in one's own room, in one's own bed, can often make a bleak situation a little better. But the beds of the Baudelaire orphans had been reduced to charred rubble. Mr. Poe had taken them to the remains of the Baudelaire mansion to see if anything had been unharmed, and it was terrible. Violet's microscope had fused together in the heat of the fire. Klaus's favorite pen had turned into ashes, and all of Sunny's teeth rings had melted. Here and there, the children could see traces of the enormous home they had loved, fragments of their grand old piano, an elegant bottle in which Mr. Baudelaire kept brandy, the scorched cushion of the window seat where their mother liked to sit and read. That's what I like to do too. The home destroyed, the Baudelaires had to recuperate from their terrible loss in the Poe household, which was not at all agreeable. Mr. Poe was scarcely at home because he was very busy attending to the Baudelaire affairs, and when he was home, he was often coughing so much he could barely have a conversation. Mrs. Poe purchased clothing for the orphans that was in grotesque colors and itched. Can't you imagine having it wearing clothes and that makes you itch? That makes you scratch yourself non-stop. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yes. Yes. And the two Poe children, Edgar and Albert, were loud and obnoxious boys with whom the Bullers had to share a tiny room that smelled of some sort of ghastly flower. Ghastly. That's more of a stinker than just a flower, indeed. Just a break of water. That's what I need. That's what I need for my calm time. Running my brain and at the same time hearing those tragic nouns. But even given their surroundings, those children had mixed feelings when, over a dull diner of boiled chicken, boiled potatoes, and bleach, the word bleached, where means boiled, bleach means boiled, strained beans. Mr. Poe announced that they were to leave this household the next morning. Good, said Albert. Good, said Albert, who had a piece of potato stuck between his teeth. Now we can get our room back. That kind of sharing. Violet Clouds are always mopping around and never had any fun. That boy seems rude. Didn't mean to stubber and stutter, but just that boy seems awfully rude. And the baby bite, said Edgar, tossing a chicken bone to the floor as if he were an animal in a zoo, and not the son of a well-respected member of the banking community. Unfortunately, that well-respected banking community is not a very good father after all, though he is a good, well-respected, and most responsible worker, but terribly terrible father. Baudelaires are right to be staying with him. Baudelaires were right for not trusting him. The Baudelaires are right for not agreeing with him, staying with him. Where will we go? Asked Violet nervously. Mr. Poe opened his mouth to say something, but erupted into a brief fit of coughing. I have made arrangements, he said, finally, for you to be raised by a distant relative of yours who lives on the other side of the town. His name is Count Olaf. Olaf. Violet, Klaus, and Sonny looked at one another, unsure of what to think. On one hand, they didn't want to live with the Poes any longer. On the other hand, they had never heard of Count Olaf and didn't know what he would be like. Your parents will, said Mr. Poe, instruct that you be raised in the most convenient way possible. Here in the city, you be used to your surroundings, and there's Count Olaf is the only relative who lives within the urban limits. Klaus thought this over for a minute as he swallowed a chewed bit of bean. Oh, our parents never mentioned Count Olaf to us. Just how is he related to us exactly? Mr. Bowles sighed and looked down at Sonny, who was biting a fork and listened closely. He is either a third cousin 4 times removed, or a fourth cousin 3 times removed. He is not your closest relative on the family tree, but he is closest geographically. That's why. If he lives in the city, said Violet, why didn't our parents ever invite him over? Possibly because he was very busy, Mr. Poe said. He's an actor by trade, often travels around the world with various theater companies. I thought he was a count. I thought he was a count, said Klaus. He is both a count and an actor, Mr. Poe said. Now, I don't mean to cut short our dinner, but you children have to pack up your things, and I have to return to the bank to do the sum or work, like you new legal guardian. I am very busy myself. The three Baudelaire children, had many more questions for Mr. Poe, but he had already stood up from the table and with a slight wave of his hand departed from his room. They heard him coughing into his big handkerchief, and then the front door creaked shut as he left the house. What you describing, Mr. Poe, as it gives you more of a pity of him? Well, Mrs. Poe said, you three had better start packing. Edgar, Albert, please help me clear the table. The Baudelaire orphans entered the bedroom and glumly packed their few belongings. Klaus looked distastefully at each ugly shirt Mrs. Poe had bought out for him as he folded them and put them into the small suitcase. Violet looked around the cramped, smelly room in which they had been living, and Sonny crawled around sullenly biting each of Edgar's and Albert's shoes, leaving small teeth marks in each one so he would not be forgotten. Let me read that again. Sonny crawled around sullenly biting each of Edgar, and Albert's shoes, leaving small teeth marks in each one so she would not be forgotten. Well, she would not be forgotten that they get to know her, but at the same time, it really did serve them right for mistreating their guest. Ah, yes. Had me feel good. Drinking a water from a cup of ice cold tea, cold water from the cup really serves me well. And also at the same time serves me well to hear those nasty, truly awful words, but written by Lemony Snickets. Yes, yes. Oh, yes. From time to time, the Bowler children looked at one another, but with their future such a mystery, they could think of nothing to say. At bedtime, they tossed and turned all night, scarcely getting any sleep between the loud snoring of Edgar and Albert and their own worried thoughts. Finally, Mr. Poe knocked on the door and stuck his head into the bedroom. Rise and shine, Baudelaire, he said. It's time for you to go to Count Olaf's. Violet looked around the crowded bedroom, and even though she didn't like it, she felt very nervous about leaving. We do, we do have to go right this minute? And you have to go right this minute? And I'm afraid for hearing these words had to be continued. Because this is for the bad start. Well, actually, this is a bad start, and this is how it really, really begins. So I go to end it because this project work really irks me. But I hope you have a good night and I hope you have a wonderful sleep.